John from Embroidery Legacy here. Today I'm going to show you some font magic using one of our line ESA fonts to create a chunky yarn effect. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into my toolboxes, go to the lettering and monogramming, and I'm going to click on the lettering tab, which will bring me to my object properties for fonts. I can see within the fonts I do have the line little days already highlighted. If I click on that, I will get a drop down showing all of my fonts within that area. If you didn't have that there, you can just type in the word line and then all of your line fonts will show up that are loaded. I did put the word line in the beginning of all the line fonts that I've created just so they'd all be easier to find. Now once you've selected it, I did set this to 100 millimeters because I do want this to be really big on the front of a shirt, and I know that 100 millimeters is going to be large. I can then resize it to the hoop size that I want afterwards, which is going to be a 200 by 300 hoop. So I'm just going to click on the enter letter text and I'm going to type in the word love. So L-O-V-E. It'll show up on the screen and I'm going to click off of here for a second. So I clicked off of the highlighted object, and if I want to make sure that I click on it again so it is highlighted again, now is when I can hit the H key to adjust the spacing between the letters. If I would have hit the H key while I was selected first, it would have added an H to the word love, and I didn't want that, so I did unselect it and then select it again, hit the H key, and now I can move each of these letters over, and I want to move them so that they're all going to pretty much touch exactly onto each other. And once they are in place, I might have to adjust this afterwards just a little bit, but now that they're all in place, I can click off of this object again. So I'm going to click off of the object by hitting the select up here in the top, and then I can click off the object. It's unselected, and now I can hit Control A, and I can see that this is 100 millimeters in height by 302. So it's a little larger than my actual hoop size. So I'm going to change this maybe to 290 just to make sure that I'm safely within the hoop. Hit enter and it will make it a little bit smaller. So here is the base setup for this design, and it is a one color design, and the idea is I want it to start right here at the top, and I want it to actually sew all the way around in a single motion all the way to the end of the E. But because of the way this is created, when I select it, I can see that under my objects it's one color, and that is because it is still seen as a font. So anytime I want to do some editing to my fonts, I want to make sure that I go to my lettering and monogramming, and I'm going to break this apart, and now it's broken apart into 4 separate letters. If I hit Control A, it'll select everything, and I can continue to break apart everything until it does not show it that it's, when it's selected, that it can be broken apart anymore. It's going to be grayed out. So this is as far as I can break this apart, and I can see that the way this was actually designed to continue on, there are multiple steps as it goes through, and it will go back over each of them, some in 2, some in 3 passes. And this is where I need to go in and make sure that I edit the design so it starts here where I want it and continues at the end of the E. So any of these empty stitches that I see where there's nothing that is there, I could delete those very quickly all throughout the design. So anywhere that I see an empty stitch, which is between each of the actual words, so to speak, or letters, that is now deleted. And then I can come in and I can turn off my true view so I can just see the lines right now, and I can see that this object here, I don't want it to sew first, and I don't want it to do this object first. I want it to actually do this piece that is at the very top at the beginning. So I'm going to move that up in the sequence, then it can do this object here. I'm going to delete this one, then it can do that object there. I'm going to delete this one and this one. I can delete this one because I don't need that twice. Then same thing, that next object is fine. Delete the next 2. This one here, I do need to travel up and back down again. So I'm going to leave both of these in place. And then when it travels back down to do this part, I only need it to do 1 pass. And then I only need 1 pass here as well. And then I can get rid of 2 of the 3 E's. So there I have a design that does the first piece, and if I hit the H key again, I can see that there is a start and a stop. But I want to make sure that it's going to start here and end down here. And then I can tab over, because it will then tab between all these objects, and I can make sure that my starts and stops are going in a logical order. Start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, and stop. So now this design is going to sew out in a continuous path. There is one area within this entire design that there is actually 2 passes of thread, and that's right here in this O, because it needs to go up and back down again. But if I did hit the player, you're going to see that it's going to start right there, and it is going to continue to sew all the way around this design and really complete it from one start point to an end point. Now this is set up properly at this point, and if I turn on the true view, I can see, and let's just stop this from playing right now. So I'll click off of that. If I want to again see what it looks like, I can always go through. So in true view, you can definitely see how it's going to sew. It's going to go up and back and then continue on all as one pass. So there, my design is essentially done. So I'm going to click off of here. Now this is my first color. If I look at the colors, it's all one color. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to right click on the actual sequence that's highlighted, and I can duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate this object, and while it is duplicated, because it's still highlighted, it still shows only as one color, but I can now click a second color, which it doesn't matter whether it's color 2 or 3, but I'll click that and it's showing now that I have another group of stitches. So I've essentially duplicated it, changed the color, and now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start editing all of these objects. Now I'm going to lock this one in place. The first one is going to be locked in place so I don't accidentally mess with it. And now I'm going to start editing this one here. I can also look at this, and the stitch length for the running stitch is actually 1.8 millimeters, which is fine for that first run, because when I do this, I do want to run this on a shirt. I want the first color to run to show me where to put my yarn. Then the machine is going to come back on the second object that I just did, and we're going to then be starting and stopping and placing down all of our yarn manually. So now I have to go to my objects, and I'm going to take a look at all of these pieces now, and I'm going to change it from 1.8 millimeters to 2.5 millimeters. So 2.5. And then I'm going to make sure that I click off of the variable run length. I want these to be longer stitches, so I'm going to click off of that so it keeps a continuous run length of 2.5 millimeters, and that way it won't make any really tiny stitches. Now this is when I'm going to start looking at each of the pieces, and if this is the first piece that's being laid down, I do want it to get right to here, and then I want to make sure that the next object is a different color. So I'm going to make that a different color. So now I can see it goes from green. I know it's going to start here and stop there. Then it's going to do this piece. Then I'm going to have the next object, which is this little piece right here. And I can have this continue on all the way into the green. The next piece that it's going to run is this one, but it's 2 different objects, and they are going to be both the same color. So I'm going to leave those 2 the same color. Then number 14, I'm going to change to the blue color for a color stop, and that is where I will run the yarn on the top of the L. I'll run the yarn, lay it down, and then run the running stitch. I'm going to then have a color change. It'll allow me to do this little piece next, and then I can do this entire piece. Then I'll travel up here, and then when I travel back down, I will lay down the yarn and go over it right to here. When I go to the next piece, I'm going to have a stop here. I'm going to go around, but this is where, while it's highlighted, I'm going to go to the knife tool, and I'm going to cut right at the top here a piece and hit the enter, and that's going to break it up into 2 objects. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab just the one piece there. I'm going to hit the knife tool again, and I'm going to cut the top off so that I'm going to turn my yarn and have a color change registered. So now if I look at the way this is going to run, I have my piece right here. I have my traveling stitch go down. I'm coming back the other way. I have this piece here, which is going to be a different color, and then I have this piece right here, which is going to be a different color. And then this piece right here, we're going to have a color change so that each piece that I'm running, I'm going to be able to, make turns. And usually I like to make turns around the top of the design. So if I look at this one that is here, I'm going to select this one as well. And I'm going to put a point right here to here, hit enter. And that way I can have this piece and this piece be the same color. I'm going to change that to blue. So it's going to run all the way through to here, stop, and then I'm going to grab the next piece and I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to make sure that I have that turn, and that turn is now a different color. So I'm going to grab the next piece. Let's make that blue. And now it's going to continue on, and I'm going to turn here at the top again. So while that's selected, let's grab my knife. And I'm going to make sure that I cut this one from here to here, hit enter, and then we'll grab that piece again, the next piece in the order, and I will again just use my knife tool and chop that up so that I have this piece right here as a color change, so I can turn that yarn as I'm moving forward. Then the next piece will go right from here to here. Then I'll have the machine stop. And then the last one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab the knife and I'm going to make sure that I sew right from this point to this point. And I'm going to hit the knife and then I'll continue to break these apart. Let's break it apart another time so that I can give this a piece from here to here. Hit enter. And now I have all of these pieces. It's going to sew to here to stop. And then it has a different color change. Then I'm going to go to here and I'm going to have another color change so that it'll do another piece. And then I should be able to continue all the way around and just finish this one up. You can create as many different color changes as you feel comfortable with when you're actually running your machine, so that you can slowly turn your yarn and then end up covering it as you go. So for this one piece right here, I felt that I was able to do it in one piece and just slowly turn my yarn. But if you're not comfortable with that, you could always take that one piece and break this apart and basically have this so that that original piece right here could be done as a couple of different colors in your design. And that way, I would have to change the order here, but that way this could be done as a blue. You do that little piece, then you continue on and you flow through. But I'm going to just undo that because I do feel comfortable with the ability to turn these objects. And let's get rid of that till I get to my original point, which is right here. The only thing I want to make sure that I do as I'm actually checking this design is I want to make sure that my starts and stops are always in the right order. So now that I locked down my first piece, I can see that my first color was locked down. I liked the way it ran. Now I'm just going to quickly run through and make sure that my other colors, my color changes, are doing exactly what I want them to. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to hit the H and I can see that it's starting here and stopping here. Then I'm going to shift, let's control, or I'm going to tab over. And when I hit the tab button on my keyboard, it'll do the next object, start and stop, tab, start and stop, start and stop. Then it's going, this is my traveling stitch, start and stop. This is my lay down stitch, which is a start and stop. And then it continues through the entire design and does starts and stops all the way through so that it's going to be in the right sewing order. And I'm just going to slowly finish that on my machine, and we will, basically guide the yarn as I'm going around and have it sew that running stitch. Again, remember that for that running stitch that I'm doing, I'm making sure that it's a 2.5 millimeter stitch length, but I made sure that there was no variable stitch length. I wanted to make sure that it does longer stitches and not little tiny shorter stitches so that it's easier to move on my machine.